Okay, so very first question. It's going to ask you to graph one line. So for our first line, we'll go with 2x plus 4. Okay, you don't have to identify a slope or anything else. Just, just graph it and go. And we'll do just a quick sketch of it here. Okay, two big things you need is you've got your slope is 2. And again, that needs to be in fraction form. So if it's not, put it over 1. The other thing you need is 4, and the 4 is your y-intercept. Okay, so your y-intercept is 4. That's the key thing we've got to have. So for the y-axis, 1, 2, 3, 4, and put your dot right there. So there's your starting point, because that's the b value. From there, you're going to use your slope. It's positive, so we're going up 2 over 1, and that'll get you the second point that is right there, and that's the line you're looking for. Okay, so on the first couple of questions, that's all they're going to ask you to do. They're going to ask you to graph one where you've got that. Second thing is it's another graphing one. This one, let's change it to negative 1/4 x minus 2, something like that. Okay, and same thing on this one. Your b value is negative 2, so that's where we're going to start. So we'll start at negative 2. And your slope is negative 1/4. And that's going to be our movement of how to get to the next point on the line. So from this point, we're going down 1 over 1, 2, 3, 4, putting that dot right there, and connect the dots for your next line. Okay, so starting off with just two basic problems. Here's one line, graph it, and that's all you got to do. You don't have to do anything with finding the slope or finding the intercept. Now, you still want to use those two numbers to get you through the graph, but you don't actually have to do anything other than just, here's the graph, and go ahead and graph it. Okay, number 3. For this one, they ask you to, instead of giving an equation, they ask you to graph the line. With a y-intercept of 1 and an x-intercept of negative 3. Okay, so for that one, you've got 2 points on the y-axis. Y-intercept's at 1, so on the y-axis, go to 1, put a dot. When you got the x-intercept, go to negative 3 on the x-axis, which will be back over here, and then just connect those 2 dots. Okay, so that's the first 3. We're just graphing the one lines. One more graph to do, and this one they make you work just a little bit to get there. So let's go with negative 3x plus 6y equals 12 is the line that you're giving. And once they've given you that, they're going to ask you to do three things. Find the slope, the y-intercept, and then after you do that, then you have to graph. Now, I think they tell you that when you're doing this graph I think they tell you to use the slope and the y-intercept, so it's one of those things where even if you pick two other points that may be on the line, they want those two specific points, so when you start clicking the dots in, they're going to actually look for those. So you're going to have to use those two things there. Because you could actually do the x-intercept and the y-intercept, but they're going to ask you to, I think, use those two things of the slope and the y-intercept to get you there. Okay, so for that part of it, basically means you need to rewrite this equation. So if you've got negative 3x plus 6y equals 12, you've got to get the y by itself. So first thing is we're going to add 3x. So that'll get you 6y equals 3x plus 12. And the only thing left to do then is to go back and divide everything by 6 to get the y by itself. Okay, so you've got 3 over 6 there. Go ahead and simplify that down and make it 1/2 x. And then the 12 divided by 6 would be 2. Okay, and with that, there's your two things you're looking for. So your slope is negative 1/2. Sorry, just 1/2. And your b value, which would be your y-intercept, would be at 2. All right, and with those two things, that's what you want to graph. Okay, so first thing we've got the y-intercept is at 2. So we're going to start at 2 on the y-axis. And then from there, slope is 1/2, so we're going to go up 1 and over 2. And there's the 2 points for your line. Yes, you always start with the y-intercept first. Because that's, to me, that's the b part of the equation, because that's the b stands for the beginning point. Yeah, so if that's the b, that tells you where to begin. And then for your slope, that's the m value. And when you've got the m value, that tells you how to move to the next point. Okay, so there's the first 4 where they just give you one equation or one part of the one equation that you have, and you've got to graph the one line, depending on whatever information they give to you there. Next thing they do, before they have you do any graphs of the 2 lines, they kind of back up for a minute and kind of take you back just a little bit. that for the fifth one, this is where they ask you to tell if the order pairs. Or tell if the order pairs are solutions. Got 3x minus 2y is equal to 7, and y equals 2x minus 8. Okay, and this is the one that when you see this one, it should, I think you'll kind of recognize it from the homework. That's where they give you the box. It's over here. Well, I'm trying to think how they've got it here. They give you the order pairs. Yeah, they give you the order pair here. And then they either give you yes or no box here. And you basically go back through and check whether it's yes or no for each one of those. Okay, so we'll get 2 and then we'll go back and get a couple more after that one. Okay, now this kind of goes back to the question I had a minute ago. That when you're given the order pair, you've got to check it in both of the lines and see if it makes both lines true. And for it to be yes, it has to be yes in both. If it's no in either one, it doesn't matter. It's just a no when you're going from there. That what we're looking for really on this one is we're going to graph these two lines, and we're going to see, okay, if we graph these two lines, is it crossing at this point? And you have to tell me either yes, it's crossing at the point, or no, it's not. Now, they don't want you to graph these. They just want you to take these numbers and plug them back in. So for this one, we'll take, take the 9 and 10 and plug it back in and see what you get. So for the first order pair, we've got 3 times 9 minus 2 times 10. Does it equal 7? Okay, so 27 minus 20 does equal 7, so that one checks. So that one's okay. Now, if that's a no answer, you can just go ahead and mark no, because if that doesn't work, it doesn't matter what the other point is. If that first one's a no, then you're done. Okay, so then we'll do the same thing, but now we're going to check it in the second point, or second equation. So if you want to just kind of mark them here, we can call that E1 and E2. So plugged it into equation 1, and it checked out. Now we've got to check it in equation 2. The y is 10 equals 2 times 9 minus 8. 10 equals 18 minus 8. That also looks like that would be good. So I'll ask you yes or no. There we go. That one's a yes. Okay, and they'll give you 3 or 4 of these on one problem, so you got to go back and check them all. And again, just because you get a yes answer on one doesn't mean that all the rest of them are no, because they may rewrite this equation so it may be the same equation just written a different way. So you've got to go back and check all the different numbers that's on here. Okay, so then we'll do the same thing with the negative 6, 0. Plug it into equation 1. That's 3 times negative 6 minus 2 times 0. Does that equal 7? Does 18 minus 0 equal 7? That's a no. And as soon as you get a no anywhere, you're done. That one's a no. Don't have to check the second one. Yep, if it's because both of them have to be yes for it to be a yes answer. If either one of them's a no, then you don't have to worry about doing anything else. Okay, so now we're going to do the same thing with that next point on equation 1. So we'll plug in the -1 and the -5. And see if that one works. Okay, so plugging in -1, -5, we've got 3 times -1 for -3. -2, -5 is 10. And -3 plus 10 is 7, so that one's good. Alright, so equation 1 checks out. So we've got to go to equation 2. So for that one, we've got -5. Does that equal 2 times -1 minus 8? Not looking good. Because -5 minus 2 minus 8, that would be a no. So as soon as you get one no answer, that means this thing is going to be a no. Okay, and we can give you one more point, but it's just the same thing. Just plug it in and work through it. So, again, I think on the homework and on the review questions, they give you 4 points. If we do 3, just keep going through the list there and checking. Okay, so that one it's really just evaluating the numbers, taking the x values and the y values and plugging it back in and seeing what you get. And again, at any point in time, if you get a no, you don't have to go any farther. As soon as you get a no answer, you're done. If you get a yes answer, then you got to check the second one, and if that's a yes, if both of them are yeses, then you're good. If you get one yes and no, then you get a no. Okay, I think there's 2 problems like that in review. There's number 5 and number 6. It's just plugging numbers in. So, we can keep doing that, but it's just the exact same thing that they have on number 6. It's on the review. So what we'll do is we'll just jump to number 7. Because 5 and 6 is repeat. It's just plugging numbers in. So to me, I don't think there's really any need to keep going through those. All right, number 7. We've got -x plus 2y equals -6. And then y equals 1/2 x minus 1. And this is the part where now they're going to ask you to solve by graphing. Oh, let me change colors on these. Let me change this one to red. Because the reds and the blues have got to get along, right? Okay, so here we go. Oh, it was just a repeat of number 5. So I'm just sticking with what's in the review there. So 6 would have just been a repeat of 5. This way, if y'all go back and start going through the practice tests, all the numbers will match up to the same problem. Okay, so the red line's good. It's 1/2 x minus 1. So let's go back through and mark these numbers. So for that one, we're going to start at -1. And then we've got a positive 1/2, so we're going up 1 over 2 to get the next point. And for these, just so we can get everything connected, we probably may have to go out a point or 2 more. So to get the next point, we'll do the same thing. We'll go up 1 and over 2 more. All right, so if we graph the red line, it should look something kind of like that. Okay, so for this one, we've got to rewrite the first equation in y equals mx plus b form. So we've got -x plus 2y equals -6. So we've got to get the y by itself, so the first thing is we want to add x to both sides. So you got 2y equals x minus 6, so then go back and divide everything by 2, and that'll get us 2. Y equals x over 2 minus 3. Okay. And again, you don't have a number in front of the x, so if you want to go back and put a 1 there, you can always go back and put a 1 just for a placeholder. Okay, so for this one, we're going to start at -3, and our slope is 1/2, so we're going up 1 and over 2. Up 1 and over 2. And if you go back and graph that line, it's parallel. So if they don't touch, no touching means no solution. Again, they should have that as an option on one of the parts when you go back. After you graph it, they'll give you an option of, you know, the 3 things that's there, whether it's an actual ordered pair, it's no solution, or something else. But for that one, they're parallel, so that one would be no solution. Okay, one more graph, and after we do this graph, then we'll do the substitution and elimination parts of it. Everybody good there? Anybody still copying that one down? All right, for number 8. Let's go with -x plus 2y equals 4, and y equals 1/2 x plus 3. Oh, same thing. Let me change colors up. Okay, let's go ahead and color code them real quick. Okay, so there's our 2 equations. And again, we've got this one already set up where the second equation is the exact same thing we had just a minute ago. So for that one, we can just jump right in and go for that one. That one we're starting at +3. So -3, and now we're going up 1 over 2, so we do need one more line here. So from there, we're going up 1 and over 2. Okay, now we could go up 1 and over 2 and get another point, but that may be getting off the chart. So for this one, if you need to go back this way, kind of do the opposite. Instead of going up 1 and right 2, you can also go down 1 and left 2 to get the next point. Mine's a little bit off. No, it's okay. So my line's a little bit off. Maybe a little bit because I'm freehanding it. Lines get off, just make your dots a little bit bigger. Okay, and that first line, same thing. We've got to rewrite it in y equals mx plus b form. So we'll need to add the x to both sides. And then go back and divide everything by 2. So we've got y equals 1/2 x plus 2. Okay, so for this one, we're going to start at +2 with our b value. And then from there, we're going to go up 1 and over 2. and then up 1 and over 2. This one also was parallel, which I didn't want it that to be, but that's the way it came out. Okay, now, and again, that one, I was picking these problems out when I was going through, didn't realize they were both no solutions. That one I thought actually had a point where it crossed, but it did not because it had the same slope. Should have changed the sign back here, but it's a little bit late now. Now, if they do cross, then you just have to go back and tell me where those points are. So I thought this one was going to be a negative slope, so we actually would have had something like, or maybe it was a little bit taller slope. I think it was going to wind up, the one I was thinking it was going to do was something like this, where if it had been a graph like this, we were crossed here, you'd have gone back and told me that this point was at 2, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, so over 2 and up 4 to kind of get that point there. So that was, should have picked that line to be a little bit different there. So either get no solution, or you could get the implementing, or again, looking for the points most of the time where you're going to get an ordered pair where they actually do cross. And just tell me what that ordered pair is going to be. Okay, so 2 graphing systems where you got to go back and then name the ordered pairs where they're going to graph. Okay, and once you've got past the 2 graphing ones, everything else is going to be just either elimination or substitution. Okay, so let's go with 5x plus 3y is equal to 19, and then negative 2x plus y equals negative 1. Okay, now here's where I'm going to be honest with you. If I'm doing this problem and nobody knows how I'm solving it, I don't have to show my work, and you're not going to because it's online. I wouldn't do this one by substitution, because it's lined up to do elimination, especially that you've got a 3 and a 1 right here. You know, that basically you've got a 1y here. So to me, if I was going to do this one, I would take this bottom row and multiply it by negative 3. Because now, if I do that, I've got a 6x, I've got a negative 3y, and a positive 3. And then I've got 5x plus 3y equals 19. Now, if you want to do substitute, we'll go back and do substitution to show you what you would get. But if it was me, I would, just because everything is lined up, I'm thinking this is going to be elimination to make it a little bit easier. Because now you've got 5 plus 6 for 11. Those two cancel each other out. And you got your 22. So then you got your x equals 2. Yeah, because if we're going to do elimination, then if I, and the reason, and again, here's why I go with elimination on this one. If they've got everything lined up, it's probably a lot faster to do elimination than it is to do substitution. Now, if we actually did substitution, you know, we'd get that, we'd take the 2, go back and plug it back in, figure out what the y is, we'd be good to go. If you do this one by elimination, actually use elimination here, then what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to rewrite equation 2. Because if you're going to do elimination, you've got to get one of these letters by itself, and to get this y by itself, we'd have to add 2x on both sides. All right, and once you've got this one rewritten where you've got y equals or x equals, now you can actually do substitution. So this is where you're going to replace y with 2x minus 1. And since this came out of equation 2, you've got to do that in equation 1. So we've got 5x plus 3y is equal to 19. And again, we're going to replace y with 2x minus 1. So take out the y and put in 2x minus 1. Okay. Now, and this is why I would say that, we've done all this work so far and we still don't have an answer. And when we did elimination, yeah, we multiplied one number and boom, we got one of the answers. So this one, if they're already lined up, it's screaming for you to do elimination and not do substitution because it's probably going to go a whole lot faster on these. But, if it says do substitution and you're one of those people that I got to do substitution because that's what it said, then here's what we're going to do. Okay, so do a little distributive property. You've got 3 times 2 for 6x, 3 times 1 for 3. Still equal to 19. Add these two together to get 11x. Add the 3 to both sides. And divide those two. And finally, all those steps later, we've got the 2 that we got over here that we had an answer in 2 steps. Yeah. So, just to give you a heads up, if they've got everything lined up on this one, I would say don't do substitution. Do elimination. Because it's just going to be that much faster. Now again, if you're going to stick to it and go for it, that's fine. Now you're going to go back and plug in x equals 2. Okay, and the best place to put it would be right here where you got this y equals 2x minus 1. Because you can pick any one of the equations we had back there in the beginning. Well, if we plug in this 2, now we've got y equals 2 times 2 minus 1. Y equals 4 minus 1, so you get y equals 3. Okay, so if you do it the way they say to do it on that particular problem, you've done probably 3 times the amount of work you could do if you would just do elimination and get the same answer. Okay, now let me show you. Go for it. Mm-hmm. Oh, if you're going to do elimination, you want either these 2 numbers to be the same or you want these 2 numbers to be the same. And yeah, and if you ever have one where it's just the letter by itself and it's understood 1, all you got to do is just multiply this one by whatever this number is, and then you're good to go. Okay. Okay. Now here, and again, that's one, if everything's lined up, I don't care if it says do substitution or not, I would do elimination just because it's faster. The one where substitution is actually probably going to be quicker is if you have one that looks something like this. This would be number 10. Okay, so here's one where they say to use substitution, and this is one where it's probably going to be faster to do this. And the whole reason why it's faster is because you already have this one that's y equals 2x minus 12. So if they already give you one where you've got y or x by itself, you've done everything, all that work we had to do in the beginning. That work is done. Now this means you just need to replace y with 2x minus 12. So if this was equation 1, and this was equation 2, since this is coming out of equation 1, we're going to replace y equals 2x minus 12, and we're going to do that in equation 2. So we've got 5x plus 3. We're going to take out this y and replace it with 2x minus 12. Okay, so now you've got 3 times 2 for 6x, 3 times negative 12 for negative 36. We've got 11x here, minus 36 equals 19. I'm right up against the hard break on the page here. If you add the 36 back over, you get 11x equals 55. Divide those two, you get x equals 5. And again, I'm going to go with the y equals 2x minus 12. So we plug in the 5. So y would equal 2 times 5 minus 12. That's 10 minus 12, so then your y would equal negative 2. Now, again, the directions say to use substitution, but if you're dead set that you don't want to do substitution, we're just going to put a big X through this thing. We're going to do elimination. We'll show you how to do that. So let's go 3x plus 5y equals negative 16. And for the other one, let's go x equals 3y plus 18. And again, but the good thing about the online test is I don't know how you do these. I don't know is you get an answer, and it's either right or it's wrong. Okay, if you don't want to do substitution, even though it's set up where you've got the x equals, if you'd rather say I want to do elimination because it seems like it's easier. Okay, here's all you've got to do. Just line your variables up. And all you've got to do is just move your terms around. And usually it's maybe 1 or 2 that you might have to move a little bit. Because this one, the x's are lined up, right? The only thing that's really not lined up is this equal sign. So if we're going to do that, let's just take this 3y that's here and move it from the right side of the equal to the left side of the equal. So the top part's okay. We've got 3x plus 5y. Equals negative 16. If we'll just move this 3y from the right side to the left side, we've got x minus 3y equals 18. Now everything's lined up. Now you can do elimination. And most of the time, to go from substitution and elimination, it's usually just that easy. You just have to move one term. Sometimes you might have to move 2, just depending on how they've got this thing written. But just make sure you get everything lined up. Everything has lined up. The x's have to line up, the y's have to line up, and the equal signs have to line up to get all this stuff to work out. All right, and now you're kind of like we were on that first problem when we asked you to do substitution. You've got 5 and 3, which we can do, but you've got 1x and 3x. So now we can just take this bottom row and multiply it by negative 3. So that'll give us a negative 3x, a positive 9y, and a negative 54. And then the top part's okay. Okay, and when you put it together, if we do this one by negative 3, because this was a positive 3, so we need this to be a negative 3. So we're just going to multiply everything by negative 3. 3 minus 3 means that's 0, that's gone. 5 plus 9 is 14. And negative 60 minus 54, that's a negative 70. Divide those two numbers. You get y for negative 5. Okay, and again, depending on which way you like it, it may be just a little bit shorter to do it this way. Oh, because once you've got the 14y equals negative 70, got to go back and divide by 14. And we do that, the y's cancel, or the 14's are canceled there. And then just do those two numbers divided out to get the negative 5. Okay, and then pick an equation to plug in the y for negative 5. And the good thing about this one is if you go back to the very original, this is going to be your best one to kind of pick because you've already got the x's and y's separated. So x is 3y plus 18. So now what we're going to do is plug in that negative 5 right here. Okay, and there's your two answers that you're looking for. Okay, so even if it says substitution, you really don't have to do substitution. You can do elimination and still get the same answer. Okay, so here we go. Here's number 12. This one says to use the elimination method with addition. Okay, so for this one, we're going to start with negative 2x plus y equals 12, and then 5x plus y is equal to negative 16. Okay, and again, if it tells you to do elimination, you don't have to do elimination, but it's probably set up to be a little bit easier this way. That for this one, you've got 1 and 1 here, and since they're both 1s, we'll just need one of them positive and one of them negative. So just take one of these equations and go back and multiply the whole thing by negative 1. We're just going to change the signs. So that'll make that a negative 5x. So make that a negative y and a positive 16. And the top part, we'll just leave that one alone. Okay, and as long as these signs are different, where you got one positive, one negative with the same number, now we can just start adding everything up. Negative 2, negative 5 is negative 7. That'll drop to 0, which is what we want. 12 plus 16 is 28. When we take 28 and divide it by negative 7, x is negative 4. Okay, and once you've got the x, just plug it back in to figure out what the y value is going to be. Either one, doesn't matter. So just pick any original. And really it doesn't have to be an original, but just any equation that's got x and y in it, just go back and plug it back in. We usually stick to the originals just because that way it's just less chance of error there. And they're pretty much set up the same way, so it doesn't really matter. Just pick the bottom one, just because, I don't know, it's on the bottom. Okay, plugging in -4. We've got 5 times -4 plus y is equal to -16. So -20 plus y equals -16, and then add the 20. Okay, and there's your two numbers. Does not matter, because it's where the two lines cross, so no matter what you do, you should get the same answer either way. Okay. Oh, now this one, as long as you get an x value to start with, if you get an x value here, you have to get a y value to go with it. Where we get no solution is back in the beginning, if we work this one out. If you've got 0x and 0y, that's when you got a trick question. But yeah, if you get an x value, then you have to have a y value to go with it. And I think they actually word these differently when they're looking for the infinitely many no solution, that they actually give you the box to check off, what else, yeah. And ordered pair, yeah. So all these you should get, if it tells you to use whatever system, then yeah, you should get an answer on this. Okay, we're going to do one more of these. I know we've got 2 that's listed, but I'm just going to do 1. Because numbers 13 and 14, they do the same thing. They just change the numbers up. So if we can do 13, we can do 14, and 12 is pretty much all the same thing. There's only 2 options you're going to get for when it asks you to do elimination with addition. You're either going to have the numbers match up perfectly, where you can start adding and subtracting, or you're going to have one like this one where you've got the same numbers, but the signs are the same. So if that's the case, you got to multiply one equations by -1. For this one, we're going to have it where it's all there, and you don't have to really do anything, because you've got -2x and you've got a positive 2x. If you've already got the signs the same, or the same numbers with different signs, you're good to go. Just start adding or subtracting, whatever it says to do. -2 plus 2 is 0, so that's gone. 6 minus 3 is 3. -10 plus 4 is -6. Divide those 2. So then you get y equals -2. And again, that's your only 2 options with ask you to do addition and elimination, because you're either going to have the numbers you need, or you need to multiply one of the rows by -1. And once you've got the y equals -2, plug it back in. Last time we used equation 2, this time we'll go with equation 1 just because, well, we'll just use a different one. Shouldn't matter. So we got -2x plus 6y equals -10. Okay, so we're going to take out the y and plug in -2. So that's a negative 2x. 6 times negative 2 is negative 12. Add 12 to both sides. And then dividing those two numbers, you get the x squared negative 1. Okay, and again, number 14 on the review, same question. You're either going to have the x's where the numbers are the same or the y's where the numbers are the same, and you're just going to either add it like we did on this one, or you have to multiply by 3 by negative 1. So it's just the next one is exact same repeat of the first two problems we did here. So we're just going to kind of skip over 14 for now. All right, so number 15 on the review. This one I ask you to solve using multiplication and addition. Okay, so let's go with negative 3x minus 4y equals 21 for equation 1, and equation 2, let's go with negative 7x minus 2y equals 5. Okay, and again, in the directions, they pretty much tell you you're going to have to multiply one of the equations by something to get this thing to work. So, first thing you're looking at is, are 3 and 7 multiples of each other? No. Are 2 and 4 multiples of each other? Absolutely, right? So that's the one we want to work on. So to get 2 up to 4, we just need to multiply this row by 2. Now, here's where you want to kind of think, though. This one's already negative 4, right? If we multiply this one by 2, this is still negative 4. And we need them to be different signs. So if this one's already negative, we need to multiply this one by negative 2 to make that a positive 4. So if the bigger number is negative, you got to make the other one a positive, basically is what it comes down to. Same thing if we're getting rid of these two. If that one's a negative and that one's a negative, we'd have to multiply this top row by a negative number so that these two would be opposite signs here. Just one. Yep, because once we multiply this one by negative 2, we've got 14x plus 4y equals negative 10. And then the top one, if we don't do anything to it, the numbers are good because this one's negative and that one's positive. And that's what we want to cancel those two things out right there. Yep. So if one of them's negative, the other one you have to make it a positive, basically. Or if they're both positive, you got to make one of them a negative. So they have to be alternating signs when you go through that one. All right, negative 3 plus 14, that's just 11. Again, that goes to 0. That's what we want. It's out. It's gone. 21 minus 10 is 11. That makes it easy. When you divide those two, you got x is 1. Okay, and again, just pick one of the two equations to plug it back into. Shouldn't really matter. We'll go with this one because the number, well, no, it's a trade-off, right? Because a couple of the numbers are smaller, but not really, so it doesn't really matter. So take out the x, put in a 1. So it's negative 3 minus 4y equals 21. Get rid of the 3. And divide those two to get y equals negative 6. Okay, let's get a couple more of those. All right, 16, same type problem. Okay, same directions. This one they want you to solve using multiplication and addition to eliminate one of the variables. Okay, now this one you got choices. Because are 2 and 8 multiples of each other? Yes. Are 3 and 9 multiples of each other? So you get to pick on this one. Do you want to get rid of the x's or do you want to get rid of the y's? Doesn't matter. Either way you go. So if you would rather get rid of, if you want to multiply by 4 to make this 8 and 8, or if you want to multiply this one by 3 to make this 9 and 9, doesn't matter. You pick which one you want to do. And you may start looking at the numbers and go, well, maybe I'll multiply by 3 because this will make this 9 and that's 24. And then you're like, ooh, that's 24. So maybe I'll multiply this one by 4. But then you're like, oh, wait, that's 36 and 36. So, it doesn't matter. Just pick one and go with it. I kind of like changing the bottom one. So I'm going to multiply this one by, wait, what did we do back here? We got rid of y back here. Let's get rid of the x's over here. So let's multiply by -4 to get rid of the x's. So that makes that a positive 8x, a minus 36y equals, and just be careful with your signs here, -36. Negative 8x plus 3y equals 9. You can. We'll do one here where we'll actually change both of them on the next one. No, if these are multiples of each other, you just have to change one of the equations. If they're not, then that's when we'll do one next where you have to do both the equations to change them. Okay, so you've got -8 plus 8. That is 0. That's what we want. That's gone. You've got 3 minus 36. That's a -33y. 9 minus 36 is -27. Yeah, let's change that to what it's supposed to be. That's supposed to be a 3. Because that was going to give us a fraction answer, and most of these you should get whole number answers. Okay, yeah, there we go. Let's change that one. Should be a -33. All right, that looks a little better. I knew something was off there. All right, now when you divide those two, you do get y equals 1. That looks a lot better than 29 over 33 or whatever that number is going to be. Okay, and then same thing on the last one. Take this 1 and plug it back in to figure out what the x is going to be. Doesn't matter, again, which one you go with. It's going to be the same answer either way. So let's just go into the second equation. So taking out the y equals -1. Sorry, y equals 1. Plug that back in here. So we've got -2x plus 9 equals 9. Getting rid of the 9, you get 0. And when you take -2x equals 0, when you divide by -2, it doesn't matter what it is. If 0 is involved with the x, it's just got to be 0. Okay, now going back to an earlier question, somebody would say, well, what if we get here and this thing's undefined? Remember, if you get an answer for y, you have to get an answer for x. When you don't get an answer is right here in the beginning. If this comes out that nothing matches up here and the variables are gone, then you know you got a trick question. If you get a variable answer here for the first one, you've got to get a variable answer for that second one. Okay, so kind of stepping these up one at a time. The first one had to multiply by one number. This one also multiplying by one number. Let's give you one where it's worst case scenario where you're going to have to multiply both equations. Okay, so let's go with negative 3x minus 4y equals 9, and then 2x plus 5y equals 8. Okay, so here's the part that makes this one the most difficult of the ones we've done so far. Are 2 and 3 multiples of each other? No. Are 4 and 5 multiples of each other? No. If neither pair are multiples of each other, that means you have to multiply both equations by some number to figure out what that number is going to be. And usually if that's the case, the easiest thing you're going to do is you're just going to multiply these two numbers together, get rid of x, or you're going to multiply these two numbers to get rid of y. And I would say pick the pair that's your smallest set of numbers. Because 3 times 2 is 6, right? If you do 4 times 5, that would be 20, so let's stick with these two. That basically, we're going to have to rewrite both of these so that we're going to get 6x and 6x. Okay, now I'm trying to remember what we said last time when we were doing this, what made this one easy. Well, basically just multiply these two together, right? So, to go from here to here. Now, since this one's negative and this one's positive, let's kind of keep it the same way. To get from negative 3 to 6, what do we have to multiply by? Multiply by 2, right? So let's take this entire equation and multiply by 2. So 2 times negative 3 is negative 6. 2 times negative 4 is negative 8. And then 2 times 9 is 18. Okay, for the bottom equation, to get from 2 to 6 down here, we got to multiply by 3. So 2 times 3 for 6x, 5 times 3 for 15, and 8 times 3 for 24. Now, and the good news on this one is we didn't have to change any signs because this one was negative and this one was positive. So the signs were already different, so we didn't have to multiply by one positive and one negative or something like that. We were just pretty much okay there. Alright, so then we put them together. We've got 6 minus 6, that's 0. That one's gone. That's what we wanted. 15 minus 8, or negative 8 plus 15 is 7y. And 18 plus 24 is 42. Divide those two numbers, and we get y equals 6. Okay, and then the same thing with all the other problems. Once you've got the y equals 6, plug it back in to figure out what x is. Pick any one of the two equations. If you don't like negatives, maybe we go with the one that was all positives. So take out the y, put in 6. We got 2x plus 30 equals 8. Subtract away the 30. And then divide by 2. Okay, and there's your two answers that you're looking for. Okay, so, and again, as long as, if you look at either the x's or y's in the original problem, if they're multiples of each other, you only need to multiply one of the rows, or one of the equations to help do elimination. If they're not multiples on the x's, or they're not multiples on the y's, then you're going to have to multiply both equations. And the easiest thing to do is basically just switch these numbers. To get these two, the first number they have in common is 6, so we multiply this row by 2 and this row by 3. over here we want to multiply this row by 5 and this row by 4 to make those both out to be 20. And it doesn't matter which one you pick, just whichever one you think is the easiest one to go through. Okay. Any thoughts or questions on that one? Everybody okay? And there shouldn't be, but I think maybe one of those on the test, worst case scenario. Okay, 18 and 19. They're the same questions. We're going to do one because it should hit both topics because of how they've got this set up. But for this one, this is where they're going to ask you to solve and state if there are no solution or infinitely many. Okay, now, if you'd have one solution, it's basically the same thing as the other problems. We'll do the two where you've got one that's no solution and one that's infinitely many because that's really the two things that's different. So we'll make sure we hit one of those on each one of these. Okay, so first one, we'll do negative x minus 5y equals 5, and x plus 5y equals 5. Okay, we've already got what we wanted. We've got a negative x and a positive x. But if you look at the same time, you've also got a negative 5 and a positive 5 on the y's. So when you add these together, you get a 0x and you get a 0y. And then 5 plus 5 is 10. So can 0 equal 10? Nope. So it's got to be no solution. So when both variables go to 0, when you get a 0x and a 0y, that's when you got a trick question. And then it really comes down to this number. If this is 0, it's always true. If this is some number on the right side is some number other than 0, it's going to be never true or no solution. And this is the kind of question where they'll give you the box at the side where they've got, three choices here. And you click on the right one where you've got no solution. You've got the one solution, and after you click it, you'll have to go back and fill in the x and the y, and then they'll give you this part down here that's infinitely many. And that's one where you click the right part of the box and do what you need to do there. Now, if it's no solution, you click on it, and then you're done. If it's infinitely many, that's the part where we'll do that one next and show you what you've got to do there. Okay, 19. Same directions on 19, just a different problem here. Let's go negative x minus 4y equals negative 8, and then x plus 4y equals 8. Okay, so again, you've got negative x plus x, that goes to 0. You've got negative 4 positive 4, that also goes to 0. Negative 8 positive 8, that also goes to 0. So if you get 0 equals 0, that's going to be infinitely many. Now, once you do the infinitely many, they're going to ask you now to, if the answer is infinitely many, they're going to ask you to write the answer in, or write the equation in y equals mx plus b form. Because really what that means, if you get 0 equals 0, that it's the same line, they've just written it a different way. So you basically just got to take one of these equations and rewrite it so that you've got it in y equals mx plus b form. So just pick one of the two, doesn't matter if we go with the bottom one. To get that equation in y equals mx plus b form, you're going to get rid of the x first. So we got 4y is equal to negative x plus 8, and then go back and divide everything by 4. Alright, so when you do that, the 4's cancel. Everything else you've just got to simplify it. You've got the y here. You can leave it that way, negative x over 4. And 8 divided by 4 is 2. And I think they'll go ahead and give you the y equals. I think the only thing you actually have to enter in is that part right there. Now, and again, you could also do negative 1/4 x plus 2. You could take either one of those two answers, and it should take that. That's one of those things that when you're, if you do one of these questions on the test and you've got the right answer, but the form is just a little bit off from the way they want it, just let me know so I can go back in and go, yeah, you've got the right answer. They just didn't like the way it looked. And I'll go back and give you full credit for a problem like that. So either one of those two should be okay. Sometimes they want it a certain specific way, and if not, then just let me know and we'll go back and fix that.